Chat just about what we know about this building. Slee, let's start with you. I mean, you were there all of yesterday. You did a story just last week talking about the condition of this before this actually happened.
And I can tell you, Rebecca, when I had gone into that building and had gone literally floor by floor looking at the state of this building, I can tell you I was in shock. I could not believe that more than 1,000 people were being subjected to work in those kind of conditions. The stench coming from the basement, the wires hanging from the ceiling, missing ceiling on almost every single floor. It was really quite unbelievable to see that public servants were being subjected to these kind of conditions. Many of them telling me about how they've been pleading with government, please move us from this building, it's unsafe, we feel unsafe coming to work. And just last week they were telling me how a disaster is bound to happen, and just a couple of days later we find ourselves in this situation.
Now, you spoke to Nehau last week, one of the trade unions involved, and they were saying they were even prepared to go on strike, because one of the departments that was occupying this building is the health department, and I think that's where we can bring in Denosa Simpiwegat. I mean, from a nursing association, good morning and welcome. You've issued a statement pretty much scathing about what's been going on. Have you known about the condition of this building as Denosa for some time, that maybe some of your members in the health space were being subjected to the condition that Slindelo has just explained?
Well, thanks for having us. And I think that when you were playing that clip, you know, emotions were going through me, because when I joined Denosa as early as back in 2012, the bill, when I went to the bargaining forum of the department, this building was on the agenda as far as 2012. There was another building in Fox Street which was of the department, also on the agenda. But the one in Fox Street, we were able to move the staff, we were successful into this building. Now, the department has got no excuse to say they were not aware of this building. We have been making numerous attempts to get the staff moved out of that building. And sometime last year, they came back with positive news, which we thought they were positive. They said they are moving the staff. Last week, Friday, when we had a multilateral as early as Friday, we were talking about this building. In fact, I've got here, I'm ready to even share the minutes of the multilateral that we had that will tell you that here it was just people that simply did not care. So there's no excuse. You can't spin this one. I was listening to the Premier also saying they were in the process of moving staff. They are on record saying that they've taken a decision not to move the staff anymore. That is on record. So we cannot be playing when 3 lives have been lost. This was really unnecessary.
So you're saying Gauteng government officials are lying, Simpiwe? They're lying that they had no intention, if I understand it, of ever moving these
well, I challenged the Gauteng Department of Health to go through the secretary of the multilateral meeting as well as the chamber records. Unions have been very clear that move the staff out of this building, and they have not been willing to move the staff out of this building. The latest feedback they gave us was on Friday, where they said that they are not going to move the staff. We asked for a certificate of compliance with occupational health and safety, and also asked also for the report or the motivation for the decision not to move the staff, so that we can understand why. But the funny thing that I'll tell you, if you are to go to the 23rd floor, where the HOD's office is, as well as the MEC's office is, you'll find that there's good ventilation, everything is superb in that floor. But when you look at the other floors, then the staff are subjected to those conditions.
Now, as you were talking there, Mr. Gada, we were showing visuals of the state of the building. Now, Slinda, you were there last week in the building, highlighting the dilapidated state it's in, the precarious health and safety conditions there. I mean, when you hear about this fire and you're listening to Mr. Gada here, that bears it out that really there was a big problem here that was in the making.
It's been years. Government has known about the conditions of this building for years. As back as 2012, when I spoke to staff, they were talking about as far back as 2 years ago, where they were highlighting the conditions of this building, saying that, listen, we cannot be subjected to work under such conditions. A disaster is bound to happen. They were telling me that their own colleagues are dying. They are getting doctor's notes saying that they're getting fungal infections due to the fact that their working conditions are in that state. And we know that last week from the Department of Infrastructure, the provincial Department of Infrastructure, they received a report that they had commissioned last year in 2017 about the state of government buildings, and they say conveniently they received it last week on the 27th of August, and this building in particular had a rating of 21%, and for anyone to be in a building, compliance needs to be at least 85%. So on the 27th of August, when they received this report, why were people not moved the day after? Nobody could give me an answer. So I think I can take Denosa's word on saying that there was no plan to move these people. When I had spoken to the Department of Human Settlements, which had received a prohibition notice from the Department of Labour as late as 2017, saying that from the ground floor up to the 10th floor, which is where the Human Settlements Department operates from, nobody was supposed to be in those floors. But just taking that into consideration, I don't understand why anyone up to that 23rd floor was still in that building.
Well, it boggles the mind, Simpiwe, to wonder, you are a government department, you've got important departments doing work in these buildings. Surely you have so many buildings that at your disposal, you could. Why would you settle? Why would it be okay to leave your staff in a building like this?
Well, it's simple. People don't care about the workers. It's simple. I mean, our shop stewards, in fact, in the house shop stewards, were suspended for almost 2 years, 18 months, for raising these issues and for saying that they are prepared to go on strike and because people must be evacuated from this building. The response was a suspension so that they don't cause problems. And I think that we must be clear that here we don't need a commission of inquiry, because that is what is fashionable. Here we need to go to the records of the meetings that have been held, and then we hold people liable and criminally charge those people for the murder of the 3 firefighters.
We're going to be talking to the government's provincial government later on this morning to get their side of the story. Obviously, you've got records from the minutes, as you said, of these multilateral meetings.
Yes.
But just to understand, was there a particular reason given? You said, yes, according to you, they don't care. But was there any particular reason that was given for the delay in moving people out or not wanting to move them out in any of those meetings?
Well, it's the normal reasoning that they will give, that there was about 8.3 or 8.4 million that was budgeted to renovate the building, and there was some work that had started already. But we're clear to say you cannot be having a construction site where you are also housing people to work. I mean, there are many health hazards to that effect. So what they could have simply done was to move the staff. They were planning to move the staff. There's a building right behind Bank of Lisbon in the diagonal street. That's where they were planning to move the staff. So the decision that they were ready to move the staff is also evidence enough that there's an acknowledgement and appreciation that this building was not good or was not habitable.
Yeah, so in a way, Slindelo, 3 deaths, it's not good. And 1 death is bad enough. But there's a bigger disaster here that could have befallen the government of Gauteng. So this is a very serious development. I wonder how many other buildings may be in the same situation.
Yeah, we expect to hear from the provincial government later this morning at around 10 o'clock. We expect a briefing from the legislature, and we expect to hear exactly what the plan of action is moving forward. We do know that with this particular building, the staff in this building are expected to work from home. They're going to be working remotely. We also know that the other 7 buildings, which are also non-compliant, we know that the Premier yesterday said that there was an undertaking to have staff in those buildings as well moved. He also spoke about how he's been officeless or homeless for some time now, following a fire in his office space last year. So it's really peculiar to hear from the government side that they had to also wait on a report that took more than 8 months to come through on the state of these buildings. Someone needs to account. We understand that Nahawu also is looking at pressing charges. We know that there is a case, there is some kind of case, whether it is criminal, whether it's civil, government is going to have to account. Heads are expected to roll.
You know, just thinking now, what happened to maintenance? I mean, you have a building over the years, surely you should be maintaining it regularly, because then you avoid this extent of
And I think it also brings up the issue around fire drills, around safety of these
especially
buildings.
big buildings, like 24
big buildings,
floors.
24 floors. These are high-rise buildings in the CBD. How how often are drills done? How aware are workers about the safety?
We're going to have to ask the provincial
government. Simpiwe just wants to add. Yeah.
Before, the question that we should be asking ourselves is that the fire started yesterday. The fire is still on today. Why is it difficult to put off the fire? It's simple. The fire, the fire extinguishing system in the department is not working. Yes. How do you put people in a building that does not have water? It tells you something. But at the same time, what Denosa is viewing very interesting is that the fire started on the 23rd floor, which is the legal department. And we know that there was an intervention task team that was introduced to assist the department to investigate corruption and all those things. So we also think that there might be foul play, but foul play found conducive environment, if it is foul play, to then do this thing. So this could have been prevented. I mean, if on Friday they came to the meeting on record and say that they don't have plans to move the people around, the report that was released cannot be used, as an excuse to say we're still planning. I'm saying it's not even Friday today, it's not even 7 days, and a tragedy like this strikes. And we agree with Neau. We'll be meeting as well as organized labor. We think that we must press criminal charges. Those who are responsible for maintaining this building, they must be arrested. Heads must roll on this one. I mean, 3 lives that are lost is 2 men, even 1. So we cannot be apologetic. And I want to make a call on government that they must not politicize this thing. They must not even try to spin it. This is a clear case of pure negligence. They must take responsibility and they must be held accountable.
That's Simpiwe Gada of Denosa there, not mincing his word after this tragedy that's still unfolding in a way, because this morning, with the latest is that fire and that building, that Bank of Lisbon building occupied by 3 government departments, has reignited.
Yeah, thanks.